Welcome back to the show, everyone. Um, today we're taking a deep dive into a story of ambition, betrayal, and a murder that really shook Renaissance Italy.
It's one of those stories that just grabs you right from the start.
Right, like you could almost feel yourself stepping back in time. Yeah. We're going to be looking at the murder of Alessandro de Medici.
The Duke of Florence.
Exactly, the Duke of Florence. And the source material we're using for this deep dive is from the Noble Blood podcast episode on this subject.
Definitely a fascinating one.
It is. We're going to uncover all the intrigue and political maneuvering and this thirst for power that led to this really brutal assassination. And we're going to see the Medici family up close and personal.
One of the most influential families in Italian history.
For sure. And what I think is so interesting is that this wasn't just some crime of passion.
Oh, no, this was calculated.
Right.
It was planned, and the consequences of this murder were huge.
Okay, so let's set the stage here. The story's all about two main characters. Lorenzino de Medici.
Who they called Little Lorenzo.
Right. Little Lorenzo, and then his cousin, Alessandro de Medici.
The Duke of Florence.
Yes, and it seems like Lorenzino always felt overshadowed by Alessandro.
Like he was always in his shadow, overlooked.
So Lorenzino, he was known for being intelligent, appreciated the arts, but he wanted that political power.
The influence that Alessandro had.
And the sources we have suggest that all this simmering resentment was a big factor in what happened next.
What happened next is a wild story.
Oh, yeah. And what happened next was an act of betrayal. On the night of January 6th, 1537, Lorenzino lured Alessandro to his bedroom.
Under false pretenses?
Totally. He told Alessandro he was setting up a secret meeting with this beautiful woman.
Oh, playing on Alessandro's reputation.
Sure.
For being a ladies' man.
Yeah, so Alessandro totally trusted his cousin and walked right into this trap.
He even put his weapons under the bed.
He what?
Yeah, he disarmed himself.
Wow.
And took a nap while he waited for this woman to show up.
No way, are you serious?
Yeah, it's crazy. He let his guard down completely.
That's a fatal mistake.
It really shows how much trust there was between them.
Or maybe naivete.
Maybe a bit of both. But of course there was no woman.
Oh, right.
Instead, Lorenzino came back with an accomplice.
Who was that?
A guy named Scoron Concolo. And together they attacked Alessandro.
While he was sleeping.
While he was sleeping, they stabbed him to death.
It's a chilling image. Like something out of Shakespeare?
Yeah, it's got it all. The secrecy, the betrayal, the brutality. It shows just how far Lorenzino was willing to go.
To get what he wanted.
Exactly. And it raises so many questions. Why go to such extremes? What was he hoping to achieve?
Yeah, what was the point of all this?
It seems like his motivations were complicated, a mix of political ambition and personal resentment, but also this deep desire for recognition.
And the craziest part, after all that, instead of running away, Lorenzino publicly admitted to the murder.
He confessed.
He even wrote this long defense of what he did, and he called it the apology.
An apology for murdering his cousin.
That's some serious audacity.
It really is.
Yeah.
In his apology, Lorenzino tries to make himself look like a hero.
A hero? Yeah, like he was the one who liberated Florence from this tyrannical ruler.
He was saying that Alessandro was a bad guy.
Yeah. Cruel, oppressive, unfit to lead. He even compared himself to Brutus.
Brutus, the Roman senator.
Yeah, the one who assassinated Julius Caesar to save the Roman Republic.
So Lorenzino was trying to make this whole thing seem like it was this noble act of liberation.
That's what he wanted people to think.
But you got to think there was some self-interest mixed in there, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the sources point to Lorenzino wanting fame and recognition. He wanted to be remembered as a man of action.
Not just another Medici.
Right. And what better way to do that than to kill a duke?
So he kills the baller Tavor. Duke writes this apology, tries to make himself sound like a hero. Did it work? Did he get away with it?
Well, not really. I mean, some people supported him,
Oh, really?
Yeah, at first there were some Florentine exiles, people who were against Alessandro's rule.
Okay.
They kind of saw Lorenzino as their guy.
I guess that makes sense. But he quickly became a wanted man. The Medici family, they had a ton of power and influence.
Oh, yeah.
They were determined to get him.
Right. You don't just kill a duke and expect to just go on with your life.
No.
So did Lorenzino, what did he do? Go into hiding?
He did. He fled Florence and spent the next 11 years in exile, mostly in Venice.
11 years. Wow. So this was like a real-life Game of Thrones.
Oh, it totally was.
Mhm.
Everyone wanted power and control.
Yeah. So if he was in hiding, who was trying to catch him? Was it just the Medici family wanting to get revenge?
They were definitely key players,
Yeah.
especially Cosimo I de' Medici.
Alessandro's successor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wanted to avenge his predecessor and solidify his own power.
Makes sense. But you mentioned Lorenzino was a wanted man and that there were attempts on his life, so it wasn't just the Medici family.
No, Alessandro wasn't just any duke. He was a major player in the Italian Renaissance.
So his death had implications beyond Florence.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. It wasn't just a personal feud, it was like a political earthquake.
So who else was involved?
Well, one really powerful figure enters the picture. Charles V.
Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor.
The one and only. And remember, Alessandro was married to Charles's daughter.
Margaret of Parma.
Yep, and Charles, he was one of the most powerful rulers in Europe at that time.
You did not want to mess with him.
Nope.
So now we've got the Medici family wanting revenge, and the Holy Roman Emperor probably not too happy about his son-in-law being murdered.
It sounds like Lorenzino was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he was caught in a very dangerous web. So for centuries, nobody knew who was behind Lorenzino's eventual assassination.
There were a lot of theories, but no real proof.
Like a historical whodunit. So how did we finally figure it out?
Well, it's pretty incredible. A historian named Stefano Dall'Olio finally solved the mystery.
When was this?
Not that long ago, actually, in 2015.
2015, so almost 500 years after the murder?
It's amazing.
How did he do it?
He went right to the source, Charles V's personal archives.
Wow.
And there he found it, a letter from Charles V explicitly ordering Lorenzino's assassination.
So after all these years, the Holy Roman Emperor was the one behind it all. But why did it take 11 years for him to act?
Well, it seems Charles initially thought, Cosimo, I should be the one to take care of things.
He was the new Duke of Florence.
Right. Plus, Charles was busy, running an empire. He had wars and other conflicts to deal with.
I can only imagine. But then he decided to take matters into his own hands.
Yeah, by 1548, Charles had some time to breathe, and I think he just had enough. He decided that Lorenzino had to pay for his crime.
And this letter that Dall'Olio found shows that Charles planned it all out very carefully.
He discussed the logistics, who would do it, everything.
He was a ruler who demanded justice.
Even if it took years. So in February 1548, Lorenzino's luck ran out. He was ambushed by two assassins.
Hired by Charles V.
And they killed him right near his home in Venice.
A grim end to a life full of ambition, intrigue, and ultimately tragedy. There's one more thing about this story that I find so fascinating.
What's that?
One of Lorenzino's assassins, a guy named Francesco Baboni, he actually wrote his own confession. Yeah, it wasn't as eloquent as Lorenzino's apology.
Of course not.
But it gives us this really interesting perspective.
It's like a window into the mind of a hired killer.
And it's kind of ironic because Baboni's confession echoes one of the reasons Lorenzino gave for killing Alessandro.
A desire for notoriety.
Exactly. Baboni, in his own way, was also trying to escape obscurity.
By committing this violent act.
It's like even in death, Lorenzino's story inspired others to seek fame, however twisted that might be.
An endless cycle.
They were all caught up in this tragic play,
Yeah.
each one driven by their own ambitions and desires. But it all led to destruction in the end.
It's crazy.
What do you think this whole story tells us about power and ambition, looking back from today?
It's a timeless story, isn't it? The desire for power recognition, a place in history. You see it over and over again throughout time.
Yeah, and Lorenzino's story is like this reminder that wanting those things can be really dangerous.
For sure. He achieved a level of fame, but at a huge cost. His family, his freedom, and in the end, his life.
It makes you wonder, was it really worth it?
Right. Does pursuing fame like that, especially through violence, ever justify the price? And it's interesting that we're still fascinated by these stories hundreds of years later. What does that say about us?
It's almost ironic that he killed Alessandro to get out of his shadow.
Right.
But then he ended up in the shadow of Charles V.
He was still just a pawn in this bigger game.
It shows that even when we think we're in control,
Yeah.
there are these bigger forces at play that we can't always see.
Lorenzino thought he was calling the shots, but Charles V was the one who wrote the ending.
It's a humbling thought. It reminds us that the desire for fame and power can be so seductive, but so dangerous.
Absolutely. It can consume you.
But it also makes you think, is there a line? When does ambition become self-destructive? And how do we achieve our goals without destroying ourselves in the process?
That's something we all have to figure out. But we all have ambitions and goals, but we need to think about the consequences of our actions and the big picture. What are we willing to sacrifice to get what we want?
And what do we want to leave behind? Lorenzino's story is a powerful reminder that the path to fame and power is a dangerous one.
Definitely a cautionary tale.
Well, I think we've done a good job of breaking down this historical mystery.
I think so.
We looked at what drove a man to murder, uncovered the secrets of an emperor, and explored the enduring power of ambition.
And how dangerous it can be.
Exactly. And hopefully we've given you something to think about. A glimpse into a world that's both familiar and strange.
And reminded everyone that human nature hasn't changed that much.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and join us next time for another captivating story. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds engaged.